So I work with investors, as you know. So it's interesting because as they come together in a group coaching and it's around high performance or personal development, you find that because their vision and values are aligned, they all deal with the same challenges. They all look at it in very similar ways. So even if you're doing hot seat coaching with one, it actually generally applies. They can start to see themselves within the conversation, but then the next level is what you said, is getting the rest involved as well. How have you dealt with this challenge in your life? And then the conversations become interesting because now they start to see that they're not alone. They're on the same journey and they have support that literally shift their confidence level as to what they're doing. Because what you find, especially I found with people like, let's take coaches or real estate investors or people who are doing different things, and most people around them, they don't understand what they're doing. They tend to fall into this space of like, nobody understands me. But then they need that, like I think it's a human need to belong, to be understood, to be supported. And when you don't get that, it creates a lot of resistance internally for us. But as soon as you receive that, it shifts a lot of the things. And that's why I realized just a couple of years into my coaching that one-on-one is not enough. Because what ends up happening is that you're working with somebody one-on-one, but what ends up happening is they go back to their normal environment with the same people, same thoughts, same feedback as to not understood, not valued, doesn't get it. And then they go through this rut and then they come back. He's like, oh, nobody understands me. I'm like, oh, there's a missing picture here. And they don't have a community. And that's essentially what you're providing, is a community of supporters that help generate ideas, that help you feel safe, confident, and moving forward on your path. And I think it's essential, even if you're doing one-on-one. So all my one-on-one clients get access to my group coaching just for that reason.
I love that, Faisal. And just to put some things together, like the one thing that Rob started with, which is really, really important for new coaches as well as advanced coaches who have been only doing one-on-one, is that this transition from expert to guide is like, the identity for coaches is often like, I need to know a lot about this thing. And sometimes you do need to know a lot about your thing. You have a niche, you have an expertise, you're the subject matter expert. And often, I coach leadership, executive leadership coaching as well. And one of the transitions we help them make is going from they were an expert and then they got promoted into leadership, and they have to, to think differently about their job. And it's a big transition often because they are used to being, their identity is used to being the smart one about this topic. And now they're like, well, now I'm in charge of people and they are supposed to be doing the work, but I'm the one who's supposed to be doing the work. Like when I went from being an engineer to being a manager, I still was trying to engineer stuff. And so the problem was I was missing out that I had this community of people that are relying on me as a leader, including my team, including my peers. And so there's this common human transition that we go through from being the subject matter expert to now being a leadership responsibility. And we get our value and our validation a different way in both of those environments. In the subject matter expertise world, where you're a coach, you have a certification or you have a niche, like a lot about this topic, great. And that's where you get a lot of your value from, a lot of your validation from, and you think people are getting a lot of value from that, and they probably are. But when you become a group coach, sure, your expertise can be useful, but even more valuable is, as Faisal was talking about, bringing that community together. And now you're responsible for a community, you're responsible to lead a community, not to tell them stuff, right? You can tell them stuff, but that's what video training's for. You can tell them stuff, that's like sometimes what the training and content you have is for. But when you bring people together, building that sense of community, as Faisal said, can create a lot more momentum because now they're with people who get them too. And you're the one who brought this together, so you can facilitate this container and this experience they're having, not just tell them about all the knowledge. Because that can be done a lot of different ways. But when we have people together, it's an opportunity for them to have a live experience that can help with that transformational aspect of what your coaching is supposed to do. And the knowledge will be there for them. They're part of your community already. So you'll have ability to share that knowledge with them, and they may need it at different times in different ways. But when you have the community together, how can they together connect? How can they together be on that hike together through the mountain, through the journey, and then know that there's other people alongside. That can be a really powerful force, even if you're coaching them one-on-one like Faisal's doing, right? And there's a reason that Faisal, you brought them all into your group, because you know that that can be a factor in helping them succeed in what they're doing, right?
Yeah, I love what you said. It reminded me of a couple of stories, but I think the first one is around the group that Daniel and I facilitated, the first group a few months ago. And so this was a contract in an organization that we're doing, and it's going well. So the first set of feedbacks that we got was that, so when we were coming into that space, one of the things I knew that they will look at us as experts. So, and I knew that we needed to do something to kind of break that like pedestal in a sense. So we both shared a little bit about our stories, and that was part of the session design. And the feedback that we got, they're human like us. They have their challenges and problems, and they've been on a journey. And I was like, that was the best compliment ever.
Yeah, that particular example, Faisal, I think is a really good example. They thought we were going to come in and tell them what to do in their field, and like they're probably better at it than we are. Like we don't necessarily know their expertise is, but what we do know is how to build that container in that environment, and have them be able to speak up for themselves and clarify for themselves and coach the group through an experience and a transformation through that experience. So they come out being different, right? And that's kind of the purpose of your group coaching, is to help your members transform, just like it is in one-on-one, but now you're helping everybody transform simultaneously in parallel in their own unique experience that they're having as part of your group, which takes a little more skill, of course, because you're like, you can't just focus on one person. Well, you can, but we recommend having everybody have a shared experience here.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Faisal.
Just one last point around that. So, like when we're going into a space, like whether it's one-on-one or group coaching, one of the things that I've learned is I think it takes a little bit of humility. I had to realize, because when you're like, as a coach, you will have been you've gone into personal development, growth, all sorts of areas, and you will get the idea generally that you know what to do for you will know what to do for them. You will be able to give them advice, and maybe to some degree that's true. But one of the best assumptions that I've come to, even outside of the business, so one thing is that, okay, I don't know anything about the multifamily investment world, but it's even more than that. I have a very small view of their life, regardless of how long I've coached them. They have a much more closer view of their own life. I can direct them, I can ask them questions, I can give them perspective, but ultimately they have to start thinking about where they want to lead their life and business. And that's where I think good coaching comes in, is that we help guide them in their own world, not with the assumption that we know their world better, but with the assumption that they know their world better, but they just need a little bit of guidance in that area, which means you're digging deeper into their life, not telling them what to do in their world. But just wanted to add that point. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, no, actually, that's beautiful. I'm glad that you said that before I shared, because from listening to what you and Daniel were just saying, one of the things that I wrote down is that information is not transformation. Consistent action in a group setting is transformation. And so we actually transform over the long term consistently by working with a group of people that maybe we'd consider peers. But there's also that higher level of accountability. There's that feeling of commitment and constantly learning. And one of the things that I realized is that it's also important, like when you think about any major change that you make, which is usually like a habit type change, you're transforming your health. There's a cycle of you take the action, you get feedback from the world. Like, let's just say you're trying to transform your physical health. You go to the gym, right? And you get tired and yet you start losing weight and your muscles grow and whatever. But there's also the cycle of, if you come back with people that are on the same journey. So let's just pretend you're going by yourself to the gym, there's a certain level of accountability. Or you're going to the gym by yourself with a personal trainer. Now that's the one-to-one coaching model. And there's the next level of accountability, because now you're paying attention to your coach. But if you're in a group program that everybody is on the same journey, we're in a 12-week program to transform our health, and there's 20 of you. Now suddenly you're not just accountable in your mind to yourself or to your trainer, you're now accountable to all the 20 people. Like, you don't want to let them down. So it's that consistent feedback loop where people are giving you feedback. They're sharing what's working in real time with each other. They're sharing the successes. They're getting celebrated for their successes. That creates long-term change, as opposed to the traditional model where it's like, oh, I just need an accountability partner. I just need someone to get on me about a particular topic, which generally doesn't lead to long-term change.
Yeah, I love that. It reminded me of, it goes into that idea quote from Tony Robbins. I like that when he says that we're drowning in information, but we're starving for wisdom.
Yeah.
Like whether you're looking at the business world or personal life, there's so much information out there. Like it's so easy for anybody to get overwhelmed. And even experts, they will go through something and they'll be like, I don't know how to make heads and tails of this stuff. It will take them years to deconstruct something that you can actually use. So what does it take for somebody to get, like you said, live feedback on what works and what doesn't? And that's where group environments come in. Like even working with real estate investors, one of the things that I've learned, you can pretty much find all the information in the world to create your own, like you can start your deals, you can start working with people. Like the information is not missing. The problem is that as you start to do that, you run into a lot of problems when it comes to, first of all, your own mindset and confidence and fears and doubts. But then as you move forward, there are technical challenges in there. Who are you running that by? You will need somebody to move that. And then there are variation of skill sets there that you need to support with. So now you need to work on 5 different skill sets, and to build those, that'll probably take you a few years to get there. So you will get there in about 10 years. But now imagine yourself partnering up with a few people. It'll probably take you a year or 2 to get to a level where you could do the same thing, if you can make those partnerships work. And that's one of the things that I'm doing with another organization within the multifamily space. They're like the only thing that moved us forward more than anything else was our partnerships. We work together to move this project forward. And in every space you go to, that's why we have Coaching Master Community. That's why you guys have Group Coach Magic, that you need to get that live feedback as to what's working. And so just today I had that conversation with a business coach, and like he was a good coach too. He was getting me to think about like how I have gone to that point. And I literally say, well, the reason why I'm at the level I am is because of the community. Like the whole thing is because I've gotten so much feedback on my skill sets, on what I'm trying in my business. And now I want to go to the next level. Now I need a different level of first expertise, but also support. And even that's in a group setting. So when I get that, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to bring it back to other places that I'm in. I'm going to share that with other people. And then we all slowly grow together. And this is the journey we're all on, is that we need to be around other people who are trying the similar things so we can grow together as we move forward. And then that's the power of group coaching, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that.
So now we give a few tips around, okay, I'm just trying to imagine myself just going through a couple of certifications. I'm thinking about group coaching. Like, how the hell do I get started? Like, what would be like the first 5 moves for a coach who wants to get started?
Well, I think there's like some steps here. One is, the first, you got to commit to forming a group, right? Like if or leading a group. So if you want, there's lots of different ways you can do group coaching, right? You can create your own group, or you can lead somebody else's group. You can, it depends on what your goals are, right? Like it always depends. But let's say the traditional path is like, you want to create your own group around this particular topic, with a particular shared aspiration and mission. You're going to have to create a group at some point. So I would say, like, number one, know what your group is about, and have an idea of your shared aspiration. And you don't have to know the perfect answer. When Rob and I first got started, we thought the shared aspiration was real estate investing. But as we realized, we actually ended up, instead of helping real estate people, we helped the coaches. So that can evolve over time, but you got to start somewhere. So I would say, figure out, what's the topic? What's the aspiration? What kind of values do you want this group to have? Like, just think about, like, what would this group be? is the first step, is thinking about that. And then you have to actually take some steps to form that group. There's a lot of different ways to do that. You can form your group through traditional, the same way that you're already marketing. You can take your existing clients and put them in a group. There's a ton of ways to form a group, but I mean, the most important first step, and Rob, you can chime in on this as well. Most important first step is to sort of coalesce your own ideas, and that actually can take some effort around what is this group going to be.
Yeah, I was writing down, and Daniel covered a lot of the first things. So like Faisal, you were asking, like what are the big moves when you're doing it? We covered a lot of them. So the initial thing is to shift your identity as being from being the expert to being the guide. That would be step number one. Number two is to really know in your heart that group is better. And in that case, you may have to take other people's words on it. Like Daniel and I, we didn't, even 2 years ago, we didn't believe group could be better than one-on-one. Now we know it it's like in our bones. And you can start hearing from other people who have gone down the path and like, okay, I'm going to assume that group is better because I've heard all these experiences from people. The third one is what we already talked about as well, which is identify the transformation that you're creating for your group, and then the values that you have personally that you want to attract. Because one of the other things, and this is a little bit of a nuance, is you're going to hate yourself if you're working with people who have significantly different values than you do. So choose your clients carefully. You want people. And when I say values, I don't mean issues, and hopefully this isn't controversial, but I've coached people who have gotten, really, through really tense situations where their friend situation fell apart completely over politics, over whether the vaccine's a good idea or not a good idea, that kind of thing. And I say those are issues, but values are the fundamental, like, one of the ones I use is if I'm with somebody at a restaurant and they treat the staff, like look down on them and treat them poorly, it's like, ooh, I think this person has a different set of values than I do. I'm not sure we're going to be friends long term. So that's a values issue. So you have to decide your values and then pick clients based on those values. So that would be the next step. And then the step after that, which I think Daniel was getting to, is commit to group coaching, whether or not you have a ton of people to be in a group coach. So you could start a group coaching program and just decide you're calling it a group coaching program and start with one person. And that person gets a little bit of extra attention. And then one of the things Daniel and I have done is to create a soft start mode. So what you do is, as you're filling the group, you can just keep doing it on a rolling basis. And the initial people get an additional benefit by getting more one-on-one time, getting more concentrated attention. But then as new people come in, it starts breathing new life, new energy into the group. So it's feeling like there's constant levels of progress. And then as new people come in, the people who have been in the group for a while get the opportunity to welcome them, guide them, maybe even be a little bit of the expert mentor in the group. And that actually makes the new person feel deeply welcomed, and also makes the person who has been in the group for a period of time feel acknowledged, validated, and see a sense of progress because they realize how far they've come as a result of being part of the group coaching program. So those would be the kind of series of steps, I would say, as you're transitioning from one-to-one to a group that you might want to create a playbook around.
Awesome. I love that. And I love that you guys distilled it there. And so there's something you said in there. So the alignment matters a lot. So initially I didn't know what my niche was. And I just started coaching people, and I didn't know who I felt aligned with. But as I started working with, for example, real estate investors, I found that even though we're not doing the same thing, our values are very aligned. So our vision and values, both the kind of life we're trying to create, the kind of purpose that we're thinking about, the kind of how we're looking at our relationships, family, like so many aspects of our life was so aligned that I got more and more attracted to helping real estate investors. And an interesting thing is I'm not a multifamily real estate investor. Even to this day, I'm not. And I'm getting pulled into that direction because I'm connected to so many of them. And I think that's eventual just by relation, which is a good thing. But that made a big difference. Now, I've also coached people, like you said, on the other side where our values are not aligned in terms of how we look at life, how we look at success, how we look at balance and all sorts of stuff. And you can see, I can feel a lot of resistance and on both sides, not just one side, and it can create a lot. It's just not the right fit, and I've had to even right now, I'm considering one of my clients that whether or not he's the right fit, because it was an exception that I created because I really wanted to support people, support him, but I'm thinking, is he the right fit for the community and for me? And it does create friction. It does create tension in there.